herself and producer Nicole V. Gagné. And so here's what's going to happen tonight. Each narrator is going to read a short piece and share some insight into how they approach the stories. And then we'll have a conversation about this classic story collection by way of questions from you. And so please use the Q&A button, which you'll see at the bottom of your screen, to ask your questions of the panel. And we'll do our best to answer them in this hour-long program. And so to kick things off, I want to introduce Nicole V. Gagné, who is a writer and editor who works with Laura Albert. She is the co-producer of the audiobooks of Sarah and the Heart is Deceitful Above All Things. And her video, The Importance of Being JT LeRoy, can be seen on YouTube. She is also the author of the Historical Dictionary of Modern and Contemporary Music, which is now in its second edition. And then we've got Laura Albert, also known as JT LeRoy. And I got to say, I've introduced many people, and it's a super challenging task to introduce Laura. You know, with most authors, you just say he or she went to the Iowa Writers Workshop, and you list a few of their books and a few of their awards. But Laura's story as an author is one of the most interesting stories in the whole history of literature, actually. So I can't get into the depths of that for you. I'm going to recommend that you go to Amazon Prime and watch the movie, the JT LeRoy story, which is an amazing movie and will tell you everything or a lot about Laura, not everything. But I want to introduce her by these quotes, by some really significant people. Dave Eggers, author of A Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius, said, JT LeRoy's first two books, Sarah and The Heart is Deceitful Above All Things, will prove to be among the most influential books of the last 10 years. This is not because they are read and understood by everyone. It's because they are read and loved rabidly by thousands of young and very sensitive people who believe that JT speaks for them. He does speak for them and does so without knowing that he does, and does so with a perfect and bizarre eloquence. Tom Waits said, JT's stories are like stitches, like exit wounds, dispatches, depositions. He is the brilliant, gifted, and profound fly on the wall. And then Robert Crumb said, I hope it's fiction. And that's the question. That's the question. What is fiction? What is truth? How do they serve each other? And what's the most important kind of truth? And Laura always tells a very important kind of truth. So I'm going to hand it off to you, Laura and Nicole, and you can tell us more.
Laura, did you want to say something first? No, she doesn't want to say something.
Grant, I thank you. I mean, you always, as David Milch always says, let's keep doing this for, you know, another 50 years.
Let's hope.
Yeah. Nicole?
Thank you, Grant, dear. When this project began, Laura had a special vision for the audiobook of The Heart is Deceitful Above All Things to bring in a range of different readers for the scope of the stories, and indeed to even enhance the audiobook beyond the published book and bring in a few pieces that were not originally in that reissue, one piece that had never even been published. And she was absolutely determined to bring in a wide range of gifted folks in a range of media who could all get to the essence of each story. And it worked out beautifully. It took a while, 21 people, to put the whole thing together. But the result is something that's really unique in the audiobook catalog out there. And I think it's going to be of a great deal of interest to all sorts of folks, including people who are not at all familiar with JT LeRoy or the stories.
Yeah, I'll just say I was reminded recently of the quote that Banksy said that in the future we'll all have 15 minutes of anonymity. And I fought hard for that, my 15 minutes of anonymity. And it's really nice to, it's also in the having everyone have their 15 minutes of being JT LeRoy, which is an amalgam of, you know, the collective unconscious. And that I'm really grateful that Blackstone was able to allow such an array of talent to come together, and everyone just put so much into it. And I'm just really very, very moved and excited. And it's allowed me to understand what's the material, what's there, because so much of it just came from this like David Milch, my mentor, said it's you're in communication with a direct link to the unconscious, and that's really what it was for me. So when I called Winsome, who did Sarah, after I had listened to the part where Cherry is with a child molester, a pedophile, and wakes up and I experienced what I put down in a whole other way. And poor Winsome, I mean, I called her just absolutely sobbing. Just I didn't understand what I had captured. I mean, I knew I really captured it, but like Winsome, look what I'm saying here. I just kind of put it down and then yeah. So anyway, it's quite a gift that I've gotten from these people. So their performances are now coming in. Yeah.
The same precise thing is happening with the hard audiobook, with all the different readers there. Everybody at one point or another just pinches that nerve like that, where you aren't just listening to a story, you're listening to someone's life. You're listening to life itself, let's put it that way, And that's a gorgeous thing, to keep experiencing that in so many different ways with the different kinds of readers and the special things that each one brings to it. That's one of the things that makes this audiobook a real tour de force.
Let's roll with the show.
Thanks, guys. This is going to be really interesting. It must be really interesting for you, Laura, to hear your work dramatized, and I can't wait to hear it tonight, especially directly in person. This has it's almost like going to a play, I guess, in some ways. Very different than a reading. And our first reader is Winsome Brown, who has one of the single best names I've ever heard in my life to start.
Thank you.
Yeah, and she is a multi-talented actor, writer, and director. Winsome reads Baby Doll in The Heart is Deceitful, Above All Things audiobook, as well as Laura Albert's JT LeRoy novel Sarah in another Blackstone audiobook released just a few months earlier. She is an Obie Award winner for her stage acting. She has captivated theater audiences in North America and Europe at the Performing Garage, La Mama, Edinburgh Fringe, and numerous other venues. And she's currently filming the TV limited series Dope Sick, in which she plays Teresa Sackler. She can also be seen in the Paul Greengrass film News of the World with Tom Hanks. And her other film and TV work includes Supergirl, Elementary, Heights, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and A Master Builder with director Jonathan Demme. Winsome, can't wait to hear your piece.
Thank you, Grant. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Nicole. Shall I just dive right in?
Go for it.
Before I do, I'll just show you that this copy of The Heart is Deceitful Above All Things was given to me by Laura. And I'll just read what she wrote. She said, "To dear Winsome, art is full of truth, and we are the artists to be available to the telling. Love, Laura Albert and JT." And so I treasure this, and that's why I decided to read from this book. So I'll be reading from Baby Doll. She points wordlessly to the back of the sheriff's tiny brown wooden building. She turns to me with a wide smile, all her teeth showing. "I'm turning you in. You are too evil and bad." I swallow hard. She starts to pull open her door. "No, wait." The world starts to tilt and melt. "I've hid you, changed your name, my name. How many times now? Please." My air is choking off. "Remember when those workers came round last time? I moved and changed everything so they wouldn't get you." I start to see colors swirling around the windshield, making it hard to see clearly. "They warned me Satan was entrenched in your soul, that you should be put to the chair and sent to hell to burn forever." She caps her lipstick. "I'll be back with the sheriff in a jiffy. They'll cut your hair for you. They'll shave your head for the chair, unless they stone you or..." Her eyes turn from corner to corner, then stare straight back down at me. "I won't be surprised if they don't just lynch you when word gets out who you really are." She adjusts the car mirror to see herself and rubs lipstick off her teeth. "Don't go." I'm crying. She doesn't turn. They usually take a knife and cut your evil tongue out first, and then your eyes, scoop them right out, and they laugh and celebrate. They'll be extra pissed because you've tricked them all. Please, please. Spit rolls down my chin. The lighter pops out. She shoves it back in and gets out of the car. I tried to make you good. I see I've failed. Wait here. The door slams, and I squint to see past the fireball of reds, blues, and yellows cycloning around me. She crosses the street and enters the sheriff's station. All the voices inside scream at me, and I can't see outside anymore. I can only hear the taunting. I see the huge wooden electric chair, wired, waiting, and empty, and the silver gray switch. I see all the faces laughing and jeering, and the horned one clutching his blood-soaked pitchfork. And I'm alone, and I deserve it all, and there is no one to take it away. I lean forward and bang my head on the dashboard. My mom told me that when I was a baby, I used to bang my head all day and all night long. She kept me in the top dresser drawer. It drove her nuts, she said. It was Satan fighting for my soul. It would get so loud, she'd have to close the drawer.
That was so amazing, Winsome, so rich, and you brought so much of that language alive and made it so dramatic. I'm just curious, how did the language of this story inform the voice you gave to it?
That's an interesting question. The language is, as you say, so rich. It's like a multi-course meal with lots of champagne and chocolates. It's so delicious. Every word that Laura uses. But my reading was really influenced by my work with Nicole and Laura on Sarah, because I had worked with them and chosen kind of a narrative voice and a way through that book. This recording of Baby Doll was tied into that other work, and I thought it made sense to continue kind of the process that we had begun. And for me, that was really about integrating all that I knew about JT LeRoy about the narrator in the book and what he's telling of his story, about Laura's story and the JT author story, and the various incarnations of JT in the world, and my place as somebody who was lucky enough to be introduced to Laura through our mutual dear friend Paula Malcolmson, and to be picked to record this work of her soul. To me, it required a kind of hashtag humble, as Laura was saying. A humility and a submission to something that's much, much greater than I was. And so to put myself in the service of both the literature, the incredible story inside the book and now of Baby Doll, but then also the story outside it as well. And so that's kind of how I came to it. And I had the great privilege of working with Nicole Gagné to find that, and because she knows Laura so well, it was very important to me to do justice and honor to Laura's, this chef d'oeuvre, masterpiece, and so to be guided through that by Nicole and Laura was such a gift. Anyway, that's kind of how I developed the voice, and that then translated to this work as well.
Interesting. Well, I oftentimes hear Laura talk about being in service to the story as a writer, and you were definitely in service to the story as a narrator as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next reader, I want to welcome up. You're going to say something, Laura? No?
Hashtag thank you.
I want to welcome Kerris Dorsey. She's an actress and singer, and she starred in the television series Ray Donovan, Brothers and Sisters, and she's also appeared in episodes of Monk, Medium, Mad Men, and other series. Her film roles include Moneyball, in which she also sings Walk the Line, Totem, and Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. Thank you, Kerris, for being here. Look forward to your reading.
Thank you for having me. I'm also going to dive right in. How old are you? He asks me and pushes himself up on his tiptoes. 7 in 10 days. I stand straighter and stretch my neck up. Tell him you want a big birthday party. He smiles, his teeth biting into his bottom lip, his opalescent eyes guarded yet prowling. You'd like that, wouldn't you, huh? How old are you? I ask. He points at my book. I know the Psalms 1 through 50. How many do you know? I know a lot of songs. What? Damn, he whispers. You're an idiot. I'm not. I can read. I stare right back at him. He smiles wider, crinkling his small upturned nose, finely sprinkled with freckles like nutmeg. Tell him you know songs. From there, he says, pointing at the book and laughing. I laugh because he is. What songs do you know? Sing some. I roll my eyes up to think. Sarah's next to last boyfriend had a mohawk. He'd given me one, but I didn't like it. People pointed and kids laughed. That's the idea of being a punk. You gotta shock them, he told me. I wet it down, making it look like a raised yellow highway divider line across my otherwise bald head. In disgust, he shaved it off. He dyed his pink until the sheriff threatened to arrest him for disturbing the peace. Then he shaved his off too. He taught me to sing along with the Sex Pistols. I didn't understand the words, but it made Sarah laugh when we sang them, sneering and spitting. Sometimes she joined in. I am a Antichrist. I am a Antikiss. Don't know what I want, how to get it. Wanted this toy, the buzzer by. He stares at me wide-eyed, mouth hanging open. I want to be Annie Key. Jesus Christ, he gasps. Go piss this toy. I finish singing and spit. It lands in a little bubbly pile on the wooden floor by his black, shined leather shoes. Sex Pistols, I say, smiling at him. You're possessed, he says, not smiling anymore. You gotta sing that for him. He nods and smiles slowly. You gotta. I know more too. Uh-huh. He'll love it, he laughs. I know Dead Kennedys. How's that go? Too drunk to fuck, I sing. I'm too drunk to fuck. He slaps his leg. Yeah, sing, he says, covering his mouth, but I can still hear him laughing. Sing that one too. Promise you will? I nod. But don't say I told you to. It'll be a secret. I'm just helping you out.
It was amazing, Kerris. I was especially interested in how you captured childishness and I don't know what the other word is, decadence, I guess, or non-childishness, adulthood, and combined them in a really interesting way. And so I was wondering if you can talk to, what was your entry point into reading this? How did you interpret it?
Yeah, well, obviously, you know, like everyone here, I love Laura and met her through also like Winsome, our mutual friend Paula, who's such a great connector of people. But I think also Laura is an amazing connector of people and has such a community and has like a curated, not in like a clinical way, but like just a beautiful curated group of people around her. And so I was just happy to be included in that group. And then when she asked me to read a story, I mean, you know, I'm an actor, so selfishly, the idea of doing an audiobook is so fun because there's sort of endless possibility. You can play so many different characters and really live inside them and make them be what you want. And so I was particularly excited to read from the perspective of a child, especially the perspective of a child and their own perspective on religion, because I think it's so interesting. It's such a vast idea, but it's diluted down to like a childlike perspective. So I think in the like vocal performance, but also just the sort of energy and spirit, I wanted to capture that innocence. And this, like, Jeremiah is so innocent, even though so much is happening to him. So yeah, to be able to vacillate between those, and then later, like, all of the other adult characters, was a fun challenge. And it was like, I needed to slow down. When I first got in the booth, I was like reading it really, really fast, and I had to like find the rhythm and just let it kind of guide me. So it was such a, like, just like what Winsome was saying, that when the language is so rich and the stories are so rich, it's not hard to lock into it. And so it was an honor to do. It was so much fun.
Both of you have drawn out the language in new ways for me. It's really nice to hear you read. It's a very different experience than reading it on the page, and really nice. And thank you for mentioning that about Laura, about the eclectic mix of people she brings around her. I love going to Laura's birthday parties because you just never know who you're going to meet. It is like an interesting mix of people that I'll meet anywhere. So
It's the fam. It's the family. You know, once you've entered in, it's, you know, everyone here knows.
There's a magic there. Definitely.
Well, Kerris, that was beautiful. I mean, Sex Pistols.
For writing it.
Thank you so much. And our next reader is Julie Mintz, who's going to read from Lizards. And Julie is a recording artist, singer-songwriter, and actress. And she began her musical career as a vocalist and keyboardist in the live band of multi-platinum artist Moby. Both her debut EP, The Thin Veil, and album Abandon All Hope of Fruition were produced by the pioneering musician-producer, and she has joined him on stage at the Hollywood Bowl, on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, Conan, and The Tonight Show. As an actress, Julie has worked on films and televisions directed and produced by Spike Lee and J.J. Abrams. And before moving to Los Angeles, Julie attended Emory University, where she earned a degree in neuroscience and behavioral biology, which she now uses to analyze all of her potential dates and the weirdos she meets in Hollywood, and maybe some of Laura's stories. So welcome, Julie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Laura and Nicole, be a part of this. Okay, I guess I should just jump right in. Okay. I got Dunkin' Donuts somewhere, she says, and reaches into the back. This your car? I ask. What? She says, bringing out the pink and white box. How old do you think I am? I shrug. This is my mama's. She flips open the box. Help yourself. I grab a chocolate sprinkle one. She takes a cream-coated one. How old do you think I am? Guess. She's taller than me. Not much, even in the heels. But she's wearing makeup and dressed old. I shake my head and wipe crumbs off my mouth. I'm 12, almost 13. I can't drive yet, stupid. She talks with her mouth full. I'm 10. I lie. You look younger. She takes a big bite and cream gets on her nose. I don't tell her. Where's your mama? I ask. She snorts. My mama's a toss-up, you know, hubba. What? Crack whore. She goes on runs. She won't be back for days. I nod, though I'm not sure I understand. But I'm glad her mama won't be back. She licks her fingers. I take care of myself. Plus, all the lizards look out for me. Lizards? My mama was worried about Kenny doing lizards. Well, she should be at this truck stop. She swallows. They don't stop for nobody. Most ignore the signs. Not me. They don't want me. I ain't a knockin'. She takes another bite. Your daddy didn't have no signs on his truck. She laughs, showing me her doughy mush. What signs? Lizard signs, stupid. What are lizard signs? You don't know what a lizard is? She asks, her mouth open and pieces of donut falling down her tank top. I shake my head. Okay, she swallows. A lizard is a prostitute. Sex for money. I nod. If you're working a truck stop, then you, she points to herself, are a lot lizard. Got it? Uh-huh. I reach into the box between us and take a cream donut like the one she has. Now a sign is, okay, hold up. She gets up and digs in the back. She turns around with a flashlight. Come here. She shines the light out of the window and onto the door of the darkened truck next to us. I lean in close to her. She smells like perfume, but it's too heavy and I feel a little sick. The light dances over the stickers on the truck door. Look it. She shines it on one of a cartoon lizard, garishly dressed, with a red slash through it. See? She turns to me. That means he don't want any. She switches it off. I slide back into my seat.
Wow.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm curious about how you were introduced to Laura's work, and when you read it, how you started to imagine the voice you have given it to it tonight and in the audiobook.
Well, I was so lucky to meet Laura. We have kind of I feel like we have a meet cute, actually, because we happened to be just sitting next to each other in a hotel lobby. And I was just a fan of Laura's writing. And I was such a fan that I knew what she looked like. I read all of her work. And so I just took a chance and said, excuse me, I don't want to bother you, but I just want to tell you that I really admire your work. And she's just like such a gracious, outgoing person and, you know, curious about other people that she started talking to me and we hit it off and sort of became friendly and then, and kept in touch. And then I was like completely honored and flabbergasted that she approached me and asked me if I would be interested in reading one of the chapters. And it was really only with the help of Laura and Nicole that I feel like I was able to do it, because obviously I have done acting work, and I think Laura had the confidence in me because I'm a singer. But I didn't really have any experience doing this. But I will say that I personally feel like I just have a really childlike part of myself. And I don't know, so I feel like that's what I really connected to, was like the true like fragility and childlike aspect that was in Laura's writing, which is so incredible and beautiful. And so I tapped into that. And I also, it's important to me, I do some work with neglected and abused children in foster care. I work for an organization called CASA, which stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. So that was also kind of close to my heart. But I mean, just in general, having Laura ask me to do this and having Nicole help me with it, I think was just like, if you ever get to narrate an audiobook, for this to be the one that you get to do is like a lifetime opportunity. So it was incredible.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you. It was incredible. And you definitely tapped into that.
Thank you.
Whatever the childlike thing you tapped into, it came through. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I just want to say that that's one thing that strikes me about every single person that participated that we invited to read, is that they do have a connection with the themes that I deal with and of being of service, that it's not just like a drive-by, drive-through, you know, it actually has a resonance. So when I meet someone, I know right away, you know, and that's important, because I mean, there's a purpose to this.
I feel like Laura had more of a confidence in me than I did, so which really meant a lot to me, you know, that Laura and Nicole sort of maybe like saw something that I didn't, which was, it's a really wonderful feeling to have someone see that in you. So thank you.
It rests transparently on the grace that gave you rise. Thank you, Julie. Beautiful.
I want to take a question from one of our listeners here, Cecilia Martinez Gill. This is for Winsome, and Cecilia's question is related to the timeline between the narrator and Sarah, a teenager, and the young narrator and Baby Doll. And the question is, how does the narrator and Sarah inform this sort of hindsight of Baby Doll's narrator to capture the terrible experience, however, so compelling from the child's perspective? Let me know if you want me to repeat that, Winsome.
Yeah, actually, how does the narrator in Sarah influence Baby Doll, or vice versa?
How does the narrator in Sarah inform the hindsight of Baby Doll's narrator to
hindsight.
capture? Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
interesting, actually, from my perspective as a reader of both of these, it actually worked in reverse. It was that by reading the kind of back history that we learn through The Heart is Deceitful Above All Things, and then we meet Jeremiah and Sarah. I kind of put them all together to make a whole picture of a life story. And so the influence for me was just in when episodes in Sarah were mentioned, I had a sense of what that was, or what Jeremiah's life might have been like before we meet him in Sarah. And that helped me very much. So it was kind of a mirror reflecting in two directions, is how I would answer that. As you see, I didn't put a younger voice on the narrator in Baby Doll, even though he is younger in those stories, because, well, as I mentioned before, they were linked in my mind, and kind of in a narrative continuum. So spoken from a slightly, which I'm not even sure if Laura and Nicole would agree with this, but I imagined them kind of being spoken in a place where he's free to tell the story, because there's so much trauma right in the middle of it that you can't, I don't think he could get the words out. There's not space and time. So it's not quite happening in the present tense. It's happening in a kind of removed, although it's very present to us. I imagined, I chose to put the narrator at the same kind of age group, age range, looking back on his life. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so. And I just want to remind listeners to please keep asking questions. We're going to try to get to them all, and I'll try to weave them in and then save some for the end as well. So keep asking. Our next next voice is Christelle de Castro, who's going to read from Disappearances. And Christelle is a commercial director, photographer, and fine artist based in New York City. She is known for her iconic images of musicians, artists, and muses. Her love of portraiture and devotion to social justice sew a common thread in her personal and commercial work. She's also the co-founder of the film production company Groundwork, producing innovative music videos and commercial spots globally. So welcome, Christelle.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I will dive right in. Okay, now before you start wailing, let's you and I have a little chat. She turns to me, a leg bent on the bench type seat between us. I blink at my tears and the picture clears some, but more are coming too fast. Let's get this straight. I'm your mother. I had you. You came from right here. She pulls up her denim skirt and pats the flat dark under her pantyhose between her legs. I look away out of the window toward the blurry factory. No, you pay me mind. She reaches out and turns my face toward her. Before I can scream, she says quickly, your mama and daddy want you to hear me. If you want to go home to them, you listen. I swallow my scream and nod. You gonna listen? I go home. You gonna listen? She reaches under my chin, raising my face to hers. I nod and then shake my head free of her hand. I hiccup hard and the chocolate ice cream runs down my mouth and shirt. Jesus. She grabs an end of my shirt and wipes at my face, hard, not the soft dabs my mama does, even as I wriggle my face away from her. I don't try to pull away though. As she rubs my face, pressing my lips into my teeth, she says, I had you when I was just 14 years old. Can't say I wanted you. Can't say I didn't do rabbit's tricks to try and get rid of you. She spits on my chin and wipes hard, ignoring my Band-Aid. If my father'd let me, you'd be flushed down some toilet. You understand? I nod, even though I don't. I sob quietly, my lips sucking in. They took you from me. Goddamn social worker cunts. She lets my face go and looks past me to the factory. Now, I'm 18 now. She looks at me, nods. I got you back. She pats my head. See, you're mine. Take me home, I whisper. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? She yells. She reaches down in her denim bag and pulls out another cigarette. I turn toward my window. Take me home, I say louder. They don't want you. She flicks her lighter. Take me home, I yell and hit the glass. You goddamn spoiled brat. She grabs my hand and twists me toward her. Don't make me whoop you. I gasp hard, and a little more chocolate ice cream dribbles out. She jerks my arm above my head, puffs on her cigarette, and exhales, her head shaking the smoke out like a released balloon. They said they got rid of you because you're bad. You understand?
Wow.
Oh.
That had a very different tone than what we've heard from other readers tonight. Very different subject matter in person as well. So I'm curious what your entry point into this voice was.
I think it's also because I'm reading it from my screen, so you're sort of seeing me say it to you, so that might be really intense.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because I actually had to come in twice to read this because I completely screwed up my first reading. We got through half of the first recording and I just was not getting it. And I think it's like, because I'm a director, so I'm used to directing people, but being in the booth and sort of being in that position, it was just like so challenging, and it was just difficult to emote, and I completely tanked it. So I really had to practice and practice and practice. And by the second time, I wasn't rushing anymore, and I was sort of understanding how to play both characters a little bit. And I think something that a lot of us have sort of tapped into tonight is like being the child was kind of interesting because that's a place I don't want to go back to personally, like being weak or like sort of being in a place of like not having control and like, you know, sort of being mistreated. I don't want to be in that place. So like reading in that voice was really, really difficult. And I kind of had some weird fun being a mean mom, like because it's so opposite to me and my character. So it just felt fun to kind of depart into that role. So for me, that side of the reading was quite enjoyable in a weird, sick way, and fun. But like being a child, that tapping into that was really, really hard. So. Yeah,
I bet. This is an interesting question from an attendee, Gia Majuris. And I'm going to put this out there for all the readers so far, because I think what's so interesting about hearing you read is words that speak to you, to put emphasis on those words, I guess is the way to put it. And so Gia asks, do you feel that using curse words provides more emphasis? But I think for me, it goes beyond curse words, but I'm just curious how you all, how you found the words to emphasize, or if those words spoke to you.
I mean, curse words are great for me, always, every scenario. What about everybody else?
Unmute yourself. tell some fucking stories.
Love it.
Yeah, Laura likes to curse. Go ahead, Daniel.
I fucking love it.
Yeah, but Laura also uses words that aren't fuck and cunt and everything.
Right.
Let's name all of those. Let's curse words in a round robin around here. But she uses other words with such punch and potency that actually the curse words for me served in their actual position, but it was sometimes other words that kind of exploded in this electric way. You know, even words like you or they, like the way she writes, the way Sarah speaks to Jeremiah is so pointed. And Christelle's reading right now was just like, it was so delicious to hear that meanness. But that she's a child too, and she's kind of discovering her own her own self through her words. Anyway, Laura, I just feel that the way Laura uses language is so scintillating.
I would add that the language that Sarah uses is completely inappropriate for a mother to be speaking to a child. In the case of Christelle's story, a 4-year-old, you know, and that very inappropriateness speaks volumes about her character and her upbringing and what she has been through that has brought her to this point. And so there is a backstory that is implied and fleshed out by Sarah's vocabulary, and makes it absolutely essential that she speak this way, because very much like our previous president, she has only one persona. She could try to be ingratiating or she can be attacking, but she talks to a 4-year-old the same way she talks to an adult male, the same way she talks to another woman, unless she has a special agenda or someone she's trying to manipulate. She talks to everybody the same way and hits them head on, like a ram, bam, like that. And so the vocabulary that she uses with the child it tells us a great deal about who she is as a person.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
And I love how there's a history of a life in the words that the character uses, and you have to decode that history.
Exactly.
And I just want to say, I think Christelle and I have the #1 meet cute story.
We have a cool story. Shall we?
Yes.
Okay.
So
So, oh my God, this was maybe 12 years ago, maybe 13. It was raining and I was leaving. It was like pouring down rain. I was leaving work. I, at the time, had like a fade, like I had a shaved head. And I looked insane because I didn't have an umbrella. So I had like literally a black plastic bag over my head. And I had a leather jacket on. Like I looked crazy. I just looked like a punk, right? And then I'm walking and it's dark and I'm running late to a birthday dinner. I was trying to go get cash before this dinner. And I get stopped by somebody who's like, hey, I'm looking for I can't remember which hotel it was, but she's like, I'm looking for the blah, blah, blah hotel. Do you know where it's at? And I'm in a rush and it's raining. And I'm like, yeah, 1 second. And I pull out my phone and I check the address. I'm like, oh, it's just down the street, go down like a few blocks and make a left. And she's like, okay, cool. And I'm turning away being like, what a weirdo. Like there's some dude with like a briefcase, like in an umbrella, like walking over that way. And she comes up to me and asks crazy me for directions. As we're walking away, she turns around. She's like, that was so nice. Thank you so much. I'm just visiting from San Francisco. So I don't know where I'm going. I'm like, I'm from San Francisco. And so we come walking back to each other. And she goes, what's your name? And I'm like, hey, I'm Christelle. And she goes, I'm JT LeRoy. And I go, what? Like total jaw drop, gonna faint, because I'm a big fan and I've been a fan since I was in high school. And so Laura, in total Laura fashion, goes, do you want to come with me? I'm gonna go meet Stephen Klein. Do you want to go to this party? I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, come on. And I'm like, well, I have to go to a birthday party, but I can walk you to the hotel. Okay, sure. So I walk her to the hotel and we get there. And basically that's how we became friends. I dropped her off and then I went to the party. But and we stayed in touch and we stayed in touch through email and we just became the dearest friends. And Laura has been so generous and she wrote this incredible foreword for me for a book that I'm working on. Photo book, wrote this for me like soon after we met because we just clicked, it was just like when you meet your tribe, that's just, you keep them close. And that's how Laura operates. I'm sure most of you experience that, but anyway, that's our story.
I was going to say,
We're getting out.
we need a separate webcast for all the stories of how we met Laura. We can invite everyone that comes to her birthday parties. That's
exactly.
I've heard that story in different variations, including my own. So I'm going to welcome Daniel Newman, who's going to read from Blue Christmas. And Daniel is an actor, musician, and model. And he has appeared on The Walking Dead, as well as The Vampire Diaries, Sex and the City, Homeland, and Cirque du Freak. His music can be heard in the film Twilight and the series 90210. For his rock band,
The new one. Not the 80s. No,
No, okay, good.
No, probably
yeah.
the 80s too. I love it.
Yeah, why not?
My favorite. It's actually my favorite show ever.
And his rock band, the Vanderbilts, Daniel's currently producing an album with Tony Shimkin. So thank you, Daniel, for being here, and can't wait to hear your piece.
At Christmas, it's a little easier to get vouchers for a free slice of pizza or burrito from the youth shelters without having to sit through a counseling session, get a medical exam, or fill out forms. If you stay at a shelter around the holidays, some gray-haired, nicely dressed woman usually comes in with cold leftovers from her office party and everyone scarfs. But nobody eats the pate, only the staff members eat the pate. Since the counselors feel especially sorry for all the homeless youth around this time, you can show up after curfew and totally fucked up and get away with not doing any of the family chores. They won't flip you off the mattress in the morning when it's time to get out. And they hand out the nice donated clothes too, even though it's gotten ball-numbingly cold long before then. Christmas is when the warm, unripped coats, socks, and gloves come out. The shelters throw a big Christmas dinner and give you a goodie bag knapsack to take home to the park, filled with deodorant, dental floss, a hooded sweatshirt, t-shirts, gloves, a cap, 3 pairs of socks, and a toy. And if you're lucky, you score a bottle of bubbles, not some lame-ass yo-yo. And since cops aren't in the mood for doing major drug busts, there's usually a lot of heroin to be had from the hooded dealers with hooded eyes, ready around the corner of the alley to serve their holiday clientele. So all in all, Christmas is pretty good. I always got a trick to buy me a cheap hotel room for the night. 2 years in a row, I had this one trick who was way into the Christmas spirit. His name was Arnold. He lived in the burbs. I never saw him the rest of the year. Only those 2 Christmases. He was about 50, I guess. Kind of doughy, with an elaborate comb over, very white fingernails. After we got a room, he'd send me to the bathroom to change into an elf costume, green tights, candy cane striped shirt, jingle bell cap, and while he put on his Santa suit. He would hang gold tinsel garland around the door frame and a string of blinking lights around the metal bedstand. I asked him if he worked at the department store as Santa. He just smiled and said he lived at the North Pole. And then he'd turn on the TV to whatever made-for-TV Christmas special was on, usually something with very white people discovering the true meaning of Christmas. Just as snow started falling, the white Christmas swelled.
Wow.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you. Oh my God, thank you.
Christmas will never be the same after that reading. Tell us about your Laura or JT LeRoy story and how it informed your reading.
I think it's just all kind of universal connection. I can't really intellectualize any of it. I think you guys said it earlier. You find your tribe. We're magnets. We are attracted to each other, and there's just this purity. I stalked JT LeRoy as a kid. I was this closeted Georgia boy actor trying to be a tough dude, and I found this voice that really spoke to me on the bookshelves, and being able to find that voice that you never really hear, especially in like rural America, of just this brutally honest, completely earth-shattering voice in a sea of kind of mediocrity. Suddenly you hear someone that has a voice like yours and thoughts and feelings like yours, and really speaking from a child's perspective in so many ways, that guttural response to so much heaviness that's happening in our lives, that we can't control, or that we think we can't control. And it was the first time that I'd really identified with these voices and with these experiences. And yeah, I wrote, I think, Laura, I think you sent me the bone necklace. And then I just became fascinated as, you know, as kind of a young artist, actor, became really fascinated with the whole kind of Andy Warhol kind of magical vibe of JT LeRoy's story and Laura's story, and captivated by the kind of whole way it unfolded. And then we got in touch and just clicked instantly. It was love at first talk. And so, yeah, it's been kind of an amazing full circle journey over many, many, many years.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how everyone, all the readers tonight, started as fans before you even knew Laura. So
Yeah.
that's really, really interesting, really touching.
Totally.
Want to move on? Good.
I want to say that Daniel was quite wonderful, and we worked with director Darnell Martin, she's one of our readers of Natoma Street, who made Cadillac Records. She's the first Black studio writer director, and she did Beyonce's first film. And Daniel worked with us to do for Georgia Project, helping to get out the vote, especially in the LGBTQ community, which was really powerful, really made an impact. And that was quite wonderful. We had another one of our readers also, Joshua Caleb Johnson, who read Meteors, also participated in that, and was quite wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me even be a part of this. And Nicole, thank you so much for just feeding me baby food the whole entire way, just holding my
you
hand.
were in Atlanta and running outside, and
Yeah.
that was like, we did these cakes. It was really cool. We were
Holding my hand through the entire thing. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure, and I didn't have to do squat, just listening to Claude like tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Such a privilege, such an honor.
We have one more reader tonight, Laura Desiree, who's going to read from Toy Boxed. And after graduating and producing for film and TV at the New York Film Academy, Laura leapt into the Manhattan nightlife scene as a bar-top go-go dancer, party promoter, and burlesque performer. Returning to her hometown of Toronto in 2013, Laura performed erotic-based cabaret entertainment while creating live art performances for the stage as the creative director at Toronto's Candyland. In 2016, Laura joined the web and TV series Naked News as their lead anchor, credited show writer, and segment producer. She has covered events around the world, including the AVN Awards, Pornhub Awards, and Toronto International Film Festival. Laura is also one of the hosts and creators of the CAM4 podcast, A Mouthful with Laura and Rami, found on all streaming platforms. So welcome, Laura. I can't wait to hear your reading.
Hi, thanks for having me, and bear with me if you get some of the New York sidewalk coming into the audio tonight. It's a little noisy. Some children disappear. They're kept in their rooms, wrapped in tentacle-like tubes, and suddenly their rooms are empty. Just the fluorescent light beaming down on the military-made bed, all cards stripped from the walls, all balloons that were tied to the bed gone. Some kids leave with their parents. They take their balloons and stuffed animals in big shopping bags, and the nurses hug them goodbye. But I tricked them all. They never discovered what I'd done to my fucking fosters. I kept my mouth shut the way Sarah taught me, so nothing could escape, and I wouldn't get arrested and sent to hell. I left without any hugs or waves or shopping bags of goodies, but I did have a stuffed bear a nurse gave me when I first came and only stared at the walls. He's yours, she told me. He looked almost like the one I'd had way before, the same yellowish fur. I didn't say thank you. I left him on the floor of the day room. She put him in my bed. He has no place else to go, she told me. Later that night, when I woke up suddenly, my heart bursting inside me, My sheets wet with sweat and pee, I grabbed the bear and buried my face in his neck fur. The spot was wet for days. I left with a woman the nurse says is my grandmother. They have custody of you, she says. I nod, not understanding, but excited to be leaving with someone. The woman signs papers while I stand quietly behind her, arms stiff at my sides. You haven't visited before, the nurse says. It's a long trip, my grandmother says. Her voice, a soft, musical lilt. Her hair, a tight crisscross of blonde braids on top of her head. Her face is a stern, drawn version of Sarah's. I follow her to the elevator, look around, and cough loudly, hoping that everyone will see me leaving with somebody. In God is my salvation and my glory, she says, staring straight ahead as the car winds through the cracked mountain roads laced with frost. The rock of my strength and my refuge is in God. Trust in him at all times. God is a refuge for us. I hear her swallow. Psalm 62, 7 and 8. She says nothing else until we get to the house. The trees open out onto a wide clearing. Horses run inside fences as our car drives past. A steeple is visible over a distant ridge. The road smooths out to soft black tar. An older blonde boy on horseback gallops next to us. He stares at me, then whips the horse twice and races away over the low green slopes.
Good, thank you so much. Laura, do you have a story about your first encounter with JT LeRoy or Laura or The Heart is Deceitful Above All Things?
Certainly. I mean, Laura and I met, it must have been 12, 13 years ago. She very quickly became a mentor to me. We met, I was producing a podcast that she was a guest on, and Laura does not fuck around. She goes right to the heart. She knows. She knows. Right. And she immediately makes it comfortable to have, private confessions exchanged between you and her. And I immediately felt very, very close and very intimately bonded with Laura. And so when I was asked to put together a reading for this, I panicked, of course. Christelle, I went through the same thing. I had to re-record, because I was not, my mouth was dry. I couldn't get into it. It was terrifying to me. Childhood is icky, and it's not something I like to revisit. Laura knows all about my mommy issues and sort of a life living with hurt. So it was tough work. And what I find is necessary in delivering this work in a vocal format is just that, to me, it always feels when you're reading JT LeRoy like you're being told a secret across a pillow while mommy and daddy are sleeping. So I wanted to make sure there was a hush to it. I didn't want to rush it. It's such visual writing as well. In this piece in particular, you can close your eyes and all of that world just comes together. And so I didn't want to race through it. I might have raced through it here, but you guys are incredible. So I was a little nervous being the show closer here. Thank you for having me, Nicole and Laura. It's a blessing. And thanks for everyone who's in attendance tonight.
You weren't rushed at all. You did exactly what you described yourself, your aim. So thank you so much. You're going to say something, Laura? You're muted, actually.
We even shared, I think I turned you on to my therapist.
I was going to say, we share a therapist. It's the keeper of both of our icky stories, and it's one person.
Which was my social worker when I was in foster care, so.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you, everybody. We're right at time, but I'd love to turn it over to you, Laura.
Let's do a couple of questions, because there's some great ones coming in. If we could just.
Are there?
Yeah.
Pick one out for me.
Oh, look. Let's see. Okay, hang on here. I think there was one from Marilyn Easter I saw.
Okay, is that in the chat? I'm only looking at the Q&A.
Oh, maybe it's in. Oh, maybe it was a different. Oh, yeah, no, it's just it's shout outs. Never mind.
Hey, I had a question for you guys. At the top, it says live on Facebook. What is the Facebook link to share for the live? I got the Zoom link, but is there a Facebook link?
Yes, there's a special Facebook link for it, and also on the Blackstone audio page. I can send you the links that we got for those as well.
It's recorded, so it'll
Awesome. Yay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Get a copy to you.
And I should note before I forget this, that The Heart is Deceitful Above All Things audiobook is available now at audible.com. It's published by Blackstone Audio. So make sure you get that so that you can hear more of this, more voices. Yeah. Yeah. So Laura, do you have any final questions or closing words? How did you feel hearing these stories tonight?
I'm shaking. It was very, I love what everyone said. I mean, I love what Laura just said about whispers. I can't, yeah, across the pillow. It's hearing it, so much of it is like the stories I carried from other people, and that, going through the experience of when you're institutionalized or in placement with other kids, you hold their stories. We know that being exposed to other people's trauma, it becomes your own. And my directive was to tell by my house parent, Stella Okolue, and we just found her sister in Nigeria, and she passed, and we, us girls, we needed to reconnect and find out what happened. And I'm almost done working with Nicole to tell all that story of how this came to be. And hearing so much of it, I've took things that happened and they're directly there. From it's changed around the place where I put it, but it's all real, it's all true. And that's the felt authenticity of it. And you guys just did a very beautiful, I'm speechless, and that doesn't happen a lot. It was just very beautiful and very, very, it takes a transmigration of spirit, where you enter into that hurt and strong and beautiful and eternal part of yourself, where you have to move out of the illusion of isolation of self. And that this time period has definitely been about that, and realizing how very connected we are. And I want to thank Blackstone for doing this, because I think this is amazingly moving. And I this is something else. Kerris Dorsey is also doing the Ray Donovan movies. We have to get that in.
That's a good, I when there's nothing else to say, promote, that's it.
We're proud of you, girl.
Well, we're proud of you. It's so powerful to hear it all read out. It's like, I'm going to cry too. It's beautiful.
And Grant, just thank you, Grant.
Thanks to everyone. This was really moving. And just want to remind people, keep listening, go to audible.com and buy the book. It's really special. So thanks everyone for attending tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Yep. Thank you.
Love you.
Laura, Nicole, we love you.
Love you.
Love you, Nicole. Love you, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hashtag humbled.
Hashtag blessed.
Hashtag blessed.
Hashtag love.